us not being accountants plays a huge role in our success on the BD front. I'm not the CPA, I'm not the technical expert, so I'm asking different questions that are gonna make maybe the prospect feel different or make them feel more connected, and I wanna build that kind of trust and reliability from a different standpoint, right? How else can I genuinely support and connect their business and help their goals?
Today, joining us is Danielle Reynolds, leading the business development efforts for Whitley Penn. Danielle, thanks for joining.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yes, and this is an exciting episode for me where I get to talk with a former colleague and that we've known each other for a long time. And so it's going to be fun to talk business development with you and your business development journey and sharing with our listeners and viewers here today on some business development tips. So let's get started around business development. So where did you start on kind of business development journey in your career? Where did it start?
What a great loaded question, right? Never thought I would, if you asked me 10 years ago, which is how long I've been at Whitley Penn, if I'd be doing this, I probably wouldn't have said that. So like I mentioned, I joined Whitley Penn almost 10 years ago and have worn a lot of different hats. So I always say they kind of all led to where I'm currently at today. And so my BD business development journey has probably looked maybe different than most people. Didn't start in a sales background. I'm not an accountant or audit and tax. I truly started at the firm in a blended role supporting our audit leader, and really from that point got to get so connected with people and other leaders internally and externally. That grew into leading all of our campus recruiting and young professional development, which I absolutely loved. And I think that was really another big stepping stone to be where I'm at today, right? Understanding our firm and who we were, our service lines, our markets, working from partners on down with everyone, to eventually stepping into this BD role that I'm leading here today.
Yeah, and so like it prepared you because you were almost sitting like on a BD bench, right? Where like you were learning the firm, learning the partners, learning the services. And that's like a huge part of when you first start in business development is you've got to get up to speed very quickly. And so you kind of had that inherent knowledge going into it. And then when you started with campus recruiting and the young professional development, tell me a little bit about what did that mean? Because did you come from a recruiting background?
No,
okay, yeah.
I didn't. There was an opportunity to take over that and lead that. And it was something I got to dabble in when I first started at the firm. And, you know, Whitley Penn back in the day, you wore a lot of hats.
Yeah.
I always say I started at the firm when we were small, 3 offices, 300 people. So relatively speaking to where we're at now. But you got to see a lot. And to your point, I think that is it was a great benefit to knowing those people, already having built those relationships when I then took over BD. But campus recruiting was so fun. And I see a lot of correlation with business development, or at least the way I viewed campus recruiting. It was very much focused on the relationship. How do we build better relationships with these students? Maybe they're students we really want on our team, but they don't accept our internship. How do we keep in touch with them that year or two? They go to intern somewhere else and we reconnect with them. How do we build better partnerships with the schools and the advisors, because they have such influence on their students and where they go, and just making it fun for everyone, right? Showing up to campus, being that, you know, people wanted to hang out with our firm and we were viewed as trustworthy and reliable, and people could see themselves growing with our firm. And that was something really important. And then also too, I started like, how do we pour into these interns, right? From a professional development standpoint, that's so important to me. And it was like, how do we train them? I remember we started our intern develop program. It's called Develop. And it was like, well, if you're an audit intern, you shouldn't just be focused on audit, right? Like, let's get you plugged into the other service lines. Maybe you're not going to work in them, but you can at least speak to them and speak about them. And that kind of starts their, call it BD path too, for moving forward. Or so we did different programs within that of getting interns plugged into different areas. And so, you know, when the time came where I was like ready to hang up my hat on campus recruiting, I had built these great processes for it and had a lot of fun doing it. It was kind of just like, it kind of plateaued. Like for me, I was like, I don't want to say bored, but I was just like, we've done so much, right? We're bringing in all these interns, we're returning them full time. Like, what's next for me? I want to touch revenue. I know this firm and our people really well, and I've been already selling this firm from a recruiting standpoint. We just go sell those services. And so it's been fun. It's been a fun ride.
Yeah. And so on the campus recruit, I'm sure that was very valuable for you to like think about the messaging and the value message of your firm and yourself. And so I think that's a big piece of business development is how do we talk about what makes our firm unique and how do we really engage with not only the people that we're selling to, which are the students, right, but also to the schools and the people that are like, we've got to have all these relationships that we're managing. And then you built this great develop program which is training the interns. So you've got some training and development chops around like how are we positioning ourselves to these individuals and getting them engaged. And that's a big component to a lot of our BD roles is like helping our people be better. And so how do we train and develop our people? And so when you think back to that, what were some of the things that you were doing to generate conversations? Because that's the key element to business development is we've got to generate conversations that matter. And so how are you generating conversations with your prospects, which were students back then?
I mean, I think it's the same way I'm doing it now, right? It's being super curious about what's important to them. And I think recruiting at that intern level was so fun because they didn't really know what they wanted to do either. So we were selling more so our brand and the story and their longevity of their career with our firm. Same way now to prospects, right? Like there's hundreds of accounting firms they can choose from. We're all doing the same services, right? But it's like, how can we really understand what's important to them and nail into that and move in that direction? And so I'm like, the same way I'm doing campus recruiting is the same way I'm trying to generate new leads and bring in new opportunities for the firm.
Yeah, it's crafting the vision behind it, but it's also asking questions to see if we're a good fit for each other.
Right. I mean, truly, I call it, you've got to find your right fit, right? Sometimes we use the same thing in campus, right? If we're not the right fit for you, that's okay. There's other firms out there for you. Same from a BD perspective. Like I'm never going to oversell you on something that you don't need. If there's a way or a connection I can make outside of our firm that might be better for your needs, that's okay too. So, which I think is a really important way to go about doing BD. At least I think so.
Well, no, I think you've hit on a really important point, which is whenever we're having these conversations, a lot of times we, as a new business development person or just in general in our mindset around business development is we feel like that we've got to go pitch why we're the best.
Oh, no. Yeah.
But we learn pretty quickly, or hopefully we'll learn as we develop that muscle, is like I've got to find why we're not a fit. Yeah. So we can be the most helpful we can in those conversations because I need to recognize what your goals are, what you're trying to do, where your opportunity is. Yeah. So I can make sure that we're the right fit for you. And that's my job as BD, whether that's prospects or interns or recruiting, like that's part of that conversation. So I think that's like a really important point that you hit on is like my job is to help find, are we even a fit rather than pitching you how great we are?
Yeah. And I mean, people get their information lots of different ways now, right? So by the time they're connected to us or introduced to us, they probably have some general idea, like, are we qualified enough, right, to support them in some way? So now they're trying to figure out, okay, are we a good fit for them too? And I think it goes back to that being curious, asking better questions to really understand the why behind changing accounting firms or what they really need or what their goals are, and then how we can best support them.
Yeah. And so this is probably around that time that I joined the firm from another accounting firm. So this was probably 17-ish or 20.
Yeah, because I started 2016 and then could have moved into campus a couple of years later.
Okay, so that's when we started to get to know each other.
Yeah.
And so obviously I was business development, so I was outward facing, like trying to generate new opportunities. You were in recruiting. And I think we started to get to know one another as you started to see like, hey, I kind of want to get into the revenue side of things. So when you were seeing where Whitley Penn was headed with the revenue side, what were some of the things that you felt that your skill set allowed for that you wanted to do to get to that business development role?
Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh. It's like going back in time. I remember those conversations we had when I was doing recruiting, like, tell me more about what you do and how, I could grow into that one day. And truthfully, it's like, just like, what's my big girl job now? Like recruiting's been so fun. It's got me so plugged into the firm. I know it so well, but I'm still taking those same strengths and that same skill set. And sometimes I think, us not being accountants plays a huge role in our success on the BD front, right? Because I'm not the expert. I'm not the CPA. I'm not the technical expert. So I'm asking different questions that are going to make maybe the prospect feel different or make them feel more connected. And I want to build that kind of trust and reliability from a different standpoint, right? Not being the technical expert in the conversation, but how else can I genuinely support and connect their business and help their goals? So really it was that. It was like, I want to be a connector. I want to be a supporter. And I can do this now from a selling a service point, I guess you can say, but I still want to represent the brand and who we are. So how can I do that from a business perspective?
Yeah. And so whenever you were moving into this BD role, like what did that look like for you? Like initially, like what did you think you were going to be doing? And then what did you kind of figure out was this role? Like what did it become for you?
Yeah, I think the first year, was still kind of a transition period. And I think it was more when I first transitioned into the BD role, it was like, okay, let's look at our current books of business. So our partners' books of business and who are our top % clients or top 10 clients and why, who are lower clients and kind of like how we could grow and expand these current books. And I thought that was great, right? Like, so for the first year, you're kind of like, it wasn't like I was new to the firm, but I was new to the role, right? So I was trying to be a sponge and absorb all that. But I kind of saw the opportunity of like, look, I think it's great. I think we should pour into our partners and try to grow and expand these books of business and better client relationships. But in my head, I was like, the opportunity still for me is those new logos, those new opportunities. Let me differentiate myself from my partners who are already doing a really great job selling their services, from whether it's giving great client service, having great referrals, right? They're all, to some extent, have done BD in their careers, right? That's probably how all good firms have been built. And so I saw the opportunity as more, hey, Danielle, let's go generate new logos, new opportunities, new connections, find them, pull them in, connect them with our firm. Because I feel like the landscape is, the better they provide great client service for their clients, they'll continue to grow that, right? I didn't think they needed my support in that sense as much as me being able to go out and generate new opportunities.
Yeah. And so when I was at Whitley Penn, that's really was my role, right? Around origination. And then I started to see maybe the same thing that you did early on, which was, hey, we can be a little bit more intentional about how we're helping our partners develop their network. But that's hard, right? At firms, because a lot of times they don't know necessarily how to utilize a business development professional. And so some of this is new. And so when I'm working with other firms, it's a lot of training the partners on what is a good way to utilize a business development professional. And sometimes that's with a book, like, hey, help me think about my current clients. But then a lot of it is like, help me go and get new conversations, help me go generate new opportunities. And so you kind of shifted into that kind of more mindset around origination. Yeah. And so tell me, what are the things that you were focused on to go get new logos? Like, what did you start doing?
I think it was really like, I started meeting different people. Since I've been at the firm, I've always been super plugged into, like, call it external organizations. I've always raised my hand and be like, yeah, I'll be part of that. Yeah, I'll do this. Yeah, I'll do that. Especially early on in your career, right? Before I got married, before I had kiddos, it was like, yeah, I'll be at everything. I'll do everything. I'll be a part of committees through the chamber and yada, yada. So it was just now kind of reintroducing myself in this new role to those connections that I thought would be a good fit for that, or those already kind of in that space as well. I also did work with partners on asking them like, hey, or even like, who would you refer work out that wasn't a good fit for us? I started building this list, and then I would get to meet those people. And And it's kind of a web, right? You start asking for, well, who would be good for me to meet? Like, would you mind making that introduction? I mean, I relied heavily on like people like you and Troy and other people that I've known in this within being at the firm for so long, of just like, hey, who can you connect me to? So now when I think of origination, finding new logos, I spend a lot of my time pouring into my COIs, my network, right? Of like, how do I build better relationships with these folks that could lead to introductions? I want them to think of me as a trusted resource. And I want to think of them too, right? It's not just like, I think you have to go into it with this mindset of like, I want to help them just as much as I'd love for them to help me, maybe if not more, right? I want to be able to support them, make connections for them. So that's kind of how I go about it. Is originating is, take the time to get to know those COIs, to get those really great introductions. There's a great quote I live by called, slow down the sale to speed up the close, right? Good things take time. So take the time to build those relationships and good things will come, right? And then the way you act on it too. And, when someone makes an intro for you, how you respond to that is not just a reflection of you, it's their reputation too. So keeping that in mind as well is really important to me.
Yeah. And I think you're hitting on like the go-giver mentality,
100%.
Which is ultimately like to be a good connector, to be a value adder. Like we've got to really think about being intentional about giving to our network and our relationships and building those. So how did you go about developing those relationships? Was it one-on-one stuff? Was it group stuff? Was it exchanging information? Like how did you develop your good COI?
I feel like a lot of it, and it comes kind of natural to me. If I were to be honest, I feel like I naturally like to get to know people, especially in a one-on-one setting, and really kind of understand them and get to know them as a person. So I would say that's how it typically looks: is one-on-one, coffee, lunch, just getting to know people. Nowadays, you can do a lot virtually too. I spend a ton of time on LinkedIn, and so I've built these kind of, call it networks and other markets. I got a lead the other day from a lawyer I know in Nebraska, like that I just have kind of built this natural working relationship with on LinkedIn, and just like cheering for one another and supporting each other's content. So it's been fun.
Yeah. So when you think about how do you stay organized with all of your networks? So as like you were saying, I've got to go to a lot of events. I've got to go to a lot of networking things before you've got to have a high motor to get out there and build your network initially. But now you've got this network. Yeah. And so how do you determine which ones to spend your time with, which ones like you need a little bit more care? How do you stay organized in that?
And I've tried to be more intentional about this as well, because you can't be at everything. I mean, at least I can't. I've got 2 young kiddos and family means everything to me. I think you can blend it all together and make it work. But when I used to say yes to everything, I don't want to say yes to as much right now. And it's got to be worth your time. It's the same how I feel with external organizations, right? You can't be a part of every organization, but the ones you are part of, be super intentional with it. Go all in on it, right? Like I'm going to be at every event for it. And then I'm going to decide at the end of the year, was this a good use of my time? Am I meeting the right people? And the same with COIs and connections. It's like, I mean, you meet them and kind of see like, am I able to support them? Are they able to support me? Okay, let's like track that and make sure we're able to both give to this relationship. And then asking them to who else to connect with. I mean, DFW market is wild, right? How many people you can know and meet. So you truly can't know everyone here. But I think it's about finding the right people that are just, I like to work with good people.
Yeah. And I think you bring up a good point, which is I think the first qualifier of any sort of business relationship, right, that we're building an inner network is really, do I like this person? Like
sometimes it's as simple as that.
Sometimes it's as simple as starting there. And then it's, okay, well, then do we have client overlap?
Sure.
And then, okay, we do. And then, but then how do we want to engage and be intentional about that? Because some of my best relationships have come whenever I'm able to build a strong relationship. We've sent connections to one another, but then we're like, hey, I'm really focused on the private equity market. You are as well. Tell me about these firms that I might not know. So like information sharing. And so I think that's like a natural trajectory, which probably you're seeing as well and being intentional about.
Yeah, you get to that trust level, right? You're building this foundation to your relationship. And then because at some point you're going to want to be able to make that ask, but not feel awkward about it. So now I've got people like, I'm like, I don't mind just being like, hey, do you mind making this intro? And they can say yes or no, and it's not going to hurt my feelings either way.
But you got to make the ask.
I mean, truly, I've learned that now over the years, like, people are okay with you making that ask. Like, I think we get really worried about, oh my gosh, what are they going to think about me if I ask them for this introduction? And I'm like, people want to help. And I think we forget that. And it's too, like, are you helpful to them, right? They are going to want to reciprocate that as well. So,
yep. And you also brought up a great point, which is ultimately, I need to ask who else should I be connected to?
Yeah.
And that's the fastest way to growing your network in the right way from people that you already trust, and they're happy to be helpful. And that's a really low lift, easy ask for folks.
Yeah. But I think it just kind of all dominoes into this great network that you can build over time.
Yep.
And then, staying like the more you see them, the more you get to know them, you get to see the work that they can do, provide, and how they can support you and your prospects too, right? Anytime I'm meeting with a prospect, I always ask, like, what other introductions do you need for your business? Like, we're talking accounting, how we can support you, but odds are they probably need other introductions. And I want to be able to make those for them because I want my network to know that I'm thinking of them. So I might as well ask. And sometimes they'll be like, oh, no, I'm good. I don't need any intro. And you're like, okay, sounds good. I just want you to know that, like, whenever you need an intro, I'm here, because that's another thing. Like, I'm not the CPA, right? So kind of going back to the campus and how similar it is now with what I'm doing in BD is like, if I brought on 100 audit and tax interns, I'm really not working with them because I'm not in the audit and tax department. So they're going to go through their internship and do that. Same with clients, right? As I'm meeting with new prospects to hopefully become clients, like, I have to build our team, introduce them to audit, tax, consulting, and then they're going to come on board as a client and they're going to build a really probably closer relationship with that advisor, right? Just naturally, right? They're the ones doing the work, providing the work. So how can I stay sticky with that person of, hey, what other intros do you need? Or let them know I'm thinking of them in ways outside of the work call it selling them to bring them into the firm.
Yeah. And I love that question that you're asking, even prospective clients, is sometimes we get hung up in our head like, well, now's not the right time to ask this question. But there's never a right time to ask that question. The right time is when you have their attention. And so when you're talking to a prospective client and you're asking, hey, is there anybody else that you're looking to meet, right? From a partner perspective, vendor perspective, like, what are you working on? I think that's a really powerful way to then generate referrals to your network. One of the questions that I like to ask is very similar, which is like, hey, what are you evaluating next year? In the next 12 months, what are you looking to evaluate? Benefits, insurance, banking, attorney, financial advisor. You've got all these partners that you work with. So who are you going to be evaluating this year? Yeah. And that usually will lead to a referral.
And I'm like, you're trying to understand their business as a whole. Yes. And I think that's the play I like to make. Like I said, I have to do something different because I'm not the audit or the tax or the accounting partner. And so sometimes those questions might be geared specifically towards that. And it's like, what value am I going to bring? I'm going to bring other questions to the table. And sometimes when I ask, like, what other interests, I remember one time they're like kind of surprised by, like, oh, I don't know, but let me think about it. And then I'll let you know. I'm like, yeah, no problem. Because they're probably so used to just getting asked the same questions over and over again and not anything outside of the box of what they're looking for.
Yeah, and you mentioned it's add value. Like, what value does business development bring as part of this conversation that's different than what a practitioner can bring to the table? Yeah. And so it's, again, our position is more maybe business oriented and connection oriented and wanting to help you solve any problems, whether or not we're the right fit, because that's our value that we bring. And so you're right on. I think it's the value. So you started business development, building your network, deepening your network. Yeah. So you, with the focus on generating new logo growth. So tell me how has that played out over the last couple of years? And you mentioned a referral that you've gotten, right? So is most of your new logos coming from, like, when you think of external facing stuff, is it coming from referrals? Do you do any outbound or cold calling or anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, it's a blend, right? And still learning every single day. I'm always like, I did hire a BD associate in January that started, and she is very outbound focused. And it's something I think is important. I think we have to do it, but it takes a ton of time. And so I do it, no doubt. I think there's a lot of value in just being right place, right time. Like I met someone, a CFO back in February at a lunch, and just have kind of like always stayed in touch. And literally last week I was just like, oh, I'm just going to check in. And we don't have like a super strong relationship, right? He was at a luncheon I was at, and then he's like, oh, you caught me at the right time. So I think outbound is really important. And it's a game we have to play, but it's not necessarily my strength. And so when I was looking at, okay, how do we grow this BD team and who would be my first hire? I was like, well, let me think of the things I'm good at, right? I like to build these relationships, deepen my COIs, and work on originating leads that way. I think we're the missing piece is outbound here. I don't have like time to do, right? The time is so precious. And so I was like, when they always are like, oh, I always am like, focus on your strengths and hire for your weaknesses. There's so much value in that. So I've got someone dedicated to outbound, right? Her goal is to book discovery meetings on my calendars with companies and people we are not connected to. So they're not current clients. They're not in our CRM pipeline of active deals. They are true, just like we don't have any connection to them. So how can we stay top of mind to them and see how we can support them? So I've got that kind of area. And I still like to dabble in it too. And then the origination and then the web lead process as well. So kind of when I stepped into BD, revamped that whole thing of how it looked. There was no real like sales process behind it. But like, how are we meeting with these folks that are coming in through our web? Because like I said, nowadays people are going out, they're chat GPT in it. Like literally, I'm not even making that up. I'll be like, what connections do you have to the firm? They're like, oh, I just put into chat GPT, accounting firm, mid-market in Dallas that works with manufacturing companies. Tell me the top 5 firms. And it spits it out. And they're like, and that's how I landed in your inbox.
That's awesome.
And so I think though, like that's a process too. There's a nurturing component to it. There's making that prospect feel like they're getting a great Willie pen or whatever firm you're at experience, the handing off of it and understanding going back to, are they a right fit for us to pursue? Or is this better suited for us to refer it out to a smaller firm or another firm that specializes in this, that we have great relationships with it? Because firms pass work off too, right? Whether you get conflicted out of or whether they don't do it or whether it's not a good fit. So how can we think of those other people too? And so kind of managing those 3 buckets in our overall BD strategy, and how we go to market with that.
Yeah. So there's a lot to unpack there with what you just said. And so we'll try to chop it up. Okay. But I think what you said that was really interesting that I think is helpful for everyone is knowing that what our strengths are. And not that we obviously shouldn't do the other things, but leaning into our strengths on there. And I think our experience to develop the muscles that we did in our previous roles around, like, so for me, I'm a sales guy. And so I came from software sales, and then that affected how I approached business development. Just like with you, your recruiting experience has affected how you approach your business development role. And again, there's no right way to do it. There's no wrong way to do business development, but it's those experiences that lean into our muscles that we've already built. And then how do we be the most effective business developer that we can be? And so you've said, okay, we need more outbound. So how did you go about experimenting? Because I know that we're all trying new things, right? So how did you go about experimenting with that and what's been working for you in the outbound
I remember calling one of my good friends. He works for, another outsourced accounting firm and heads up all that, and kind of picked his brain, like, who in my network can help me with this? Like, people genuinely want to help. It's once again, like, people are scared to be like, oh, I can't call them. They're a competitor. I'm like, they want to help you. And so kind of, it was something that I was like, the accounting industry, every industry is changing, right? There's a lot, whether you want to say it's private equity within the industry or consolidation, whatever, like there's a lot of outbound messages going out. So I was trying to be super mindful of like, okay, if we're going to do it, I think we need to do it, but I want to do it in a way that's like still true to our brand and true to us and true to that relationship driven side of things. And how can we build processes like that? So I tell my associate all the time, I'm like, look, we might do it one way, and then don't be alarmed if next week, like, we just change the approach on everything. But like, it's in the way the messaging sounds. I think that's really important to me. And I don't know, it's just like, you're just taking these out wherever we get these outbound lists. So it could be Dallas Business Journal puts out a list of top 50 middle market companies. It could be going into Zoom Info and just building a manufacturing Dallas by revenue, by location, and just getting these names and just trying to see how we can get to know them. And that's our outbound strategy. It's a longer game. So, and me not being a salesperson, like, I'm like, oh, cold calls, nope, can't do that. But okay, we can get in inboxes and invite them to different things, let them know we're thinking of them, and try to build a relationship that way. And I think people probably don't love it because it is a slower process. I remind my associate all the time, I'm like, it might be 10, 12 touches before someone even responds to you. So we have to reevaluate what's a win in outbound. A win in outbound is different than a win in anything else. Like, a response is a win. Like, I remember her first response she got, I was like, celebrate this. Don't forget it. Like, the fact that they even want us to propose, that's huge, right? That they responded back. And now we're kind of like, we'll just keep getting better at it.
Yeah. And so you've highlighted a couple things like, hey, we need to get in the inbox for you to see our name, for you to know, and then develop and then respond. And so I think what's interesting is like what you mentioned, which is utilizing events or invites or things like that. Have y'all seen success in even colder like, invites?
Because sometimes for events, like if we've got our healthcare conference coming up or something, like I can build a cold out like list of like who we want to invite to this that maybe we're not connected to. But then I think you can't just invite them. Like, there's nurturing that goes along with that. I've always been very pro, like, we need a pre and post event like communication strategy from a BD perspective, right? There's current clients that need to maybe get messages from their books of business and all that. But then there's people attending these events that have no connection to the firm. So we need to understand why they're attending, how can we stay like in front of them and get them to want to continue to learn more about our firm.
And I think that's the biggest miss for a lot of firms, which is we'll do all this great stuff, like host events or a conference or have a big client communication, like, hey, we have this new service, or hey, have you seen this new thing with the new tax laws or whatever it is. But then it's in like who's calling them, who's following up with them. And that's BD's role because it's tough to get our people that have capacity constraints to do those things.
And they're only getting busier, right? Like, and to your point, the power is in the follow-up. And sometimes I joke with my other BD folks or friends or just think about it. Like, when you think of BD, it's like, okay, what are you really good at? You're really good at being organized. You're really good at following up. You're really good at maybe email, like all those, I don't want to call them silly things, but you're like, they're not that technical of things, but they're the hardest things to do. They take a lot of time. They take a lot of intention, and no one's really doing it. I mean, I can't tell you how many prospects I'll meet with, especially when they come through like the web leads. And it's like, what other firms are you meeting with? Because I'll usually try to ask that. And they're like, well, you're the only one that responded. And I'm like, that blows my mind. Because web leads are low-hanging fruit, right? Like, truly, they're not all was going to be great leads. I mean, but those are low-hanging fruit. Like, they're coming into your firm's inbox. Like, you just got to kind of understand it. And we've won some great clients from it. And so that's a process. Literally the first thing when I moved into BD was like, we have to build a better process around this because I think it's so important.
Yes. Well, I agree. I think a lot of times I'll talk to firms that are asking me, hey, Neil, like, we need to do a better job at BD. We need more leads. We need to think about our growth and getting more structured. It's like, okay, you need more leads. How many do you get right now?
Yeah.
I don't know.
They don't even know.
I don't know. And that's obviously the first step is like, well, let's organize it because I know this to be true for me is I won more opportunities because I was the first to respond and I was excited about doing business with them.
Yeah.
And that is not we are better than you. That is an experience, which is what you're talking about. So how did you structure those web leads coming in? Like, what are some of the things that's been working as you've maybe evolved that process?
Yeah, I think, it's like, how do we make this as streamlined as possible and as easy for the end user, not us, like what's going to make our life. So making our life easier would be like, okay, when they come into the web, let's have them fill out this crazy form to get all this information and have them type out questions. Like that might make it easier on us to be like, okay, like we can see if they're a good fit or not. But then you're kind of discounting them based off what? Revenue or what, where you're not really knowing their full story. Maybe they're only a 3-year company and their revenue is lower than what your threshold might be, but man, they're already at $20 million in 3 years. Like that's so great. And so it's okay, give them the best experience and make it so easy for them to book a meeting and talk to someone real, I guess. Yeah. Because I think AI is great, all this is great, but there is still a human connection that we always have to bring into the process, right? So I'm very big on like, let's automate as much as we can, but to any process we automate, there becomes human side has to step in, right? It can't all just be automated. So the web lead process, it was like, let's remove the form. Let's make it very easy. Let's have them immediate response when they fill something out. So they're like, it's like, hi, thanks so much for reaching out. My name's Danielle. I lead business development. I'm so excited to learn more about you and understand your needs and just make them feel like, okay, great. They book a meeting, I discover it. And I always say through this whole web lead process in particular, it's kind of the same process I have if I got a referral and kind of discovered it and set up the right team and brought in the right folks and moved that process along and stayed with it. But it's like, how can I set up the win as easy as possible? Right? If they're coming in to the web, I'm meeting with them. I've got a BD playbook that I've used so many times now, right? I can do it in my sleep. And at the end of the day, you're like, you don't want to just read off questions. You want to just have a conversation with someone. And really I want to get as much as I can out of them during that 30 minutes of really feeling like we understand why they're changing CPA firms, what's really important, what are their goals, are they trying to sell their business in a few years, like what have you, collect the certain documents we need so that when I go to my partners, they could easily be like, with those notes and reviewing whether it's the financial statements, tax returns, whatever, like they could probably create a proposal and say yes or no right from that without even like, let's set it up as easy as we can and be like, yeah, this is a great prospect. I mean, we're still going to want to meet with them and get introduced to them and introduce the right teams to them. But truly, it's how can we make this process so streamlined on both ends for everyone? Because, I don't know, that's always been so important to me.
Yeah. So when we think about the experience that we're creating, I think you touched on something which is really critical, is a lot of times a traditional kind of client journey is based on what we need. Right. And it's not necessarily serving the client and helping them make a decision to a problem that they're facing or an opportunity that they're trying to meet. And so when you look at this process, I have most of these web leads, they can come from random places like ChatGPT and SEO, but a lot of them come from word of mouth. Like I've heard of you guys.
And they just don't know someone at the firm.
And they don't know someone in particular, forgotten who they met at Whitley Penn, a firm like that. And so they're like, hey, this is a good conversation for us to have because we've heard of word of mouth. But then we make it really hard for them to get the information that they need to make a decision. And so when you're thinking about your discovery meetings, you referenced the BD Playbook. It's great that we start with an idea and a script, but then it becomes your own. Yeah. And then once you've gotten a couple of reps, then it becomes a lot more natural. Yeah. But those questions that you're asking, hey, are you looking to sell? And what are your business goals? Right? Those are the questions that we typically miss because we usually get introduced to them because they need a particular thing. Yeah. Hey, we're looking at tax returns. Like we're looking at a new audit firm. And then we focus all of our time and energy around that particular service instead of backing up and finding other ways to be a true partner to them. Right. And so I think what you've created and through this flow, it makes them feel special, like they have an experience, like we care. but then we're asking questions about their business. So we're not just another vendor to them. Right. And I think what you've set up is like really, really cool.
Yeah. And then it's just like, how do we support them in all the other areas too? Right. Yeah. And so that was like my first big project. And I was really proud of it. Right. Like it's a lot of time. Like we get a lot of really great web leads. And I think we do a great job now, like nurturing them and putting them in this process. And look, on their end, they're used to now, like go to any firm, right? And there's going to be a sales, a BD component to it, team, discovery, what have you.
Yeah.
So like, that's nothing new,
yes,
right?
Correct.
So I've never had a prospect where they're like, well, I don't want to talk to you. Like, just send me straight to the partner. Like, that's just like not how it goes. Yep. And so, and this also saves our partners time too, right? This lets us be really intentional about what we're saying yes or no to. I work directly with our audit director, with our tax, like market leaders. And it's like, okay, who does this really make sense for like the books of business for this to go on? So it's all really intentional. It's not just like me deciding, oh, I'm going to send this to him because he's my favorite. It's really intentional about who's going to give the best service, how your entity is set up, right, matters for expertise. And now, especially nowadays, right?
Sure.
Industry experience and those little things really matter. It's not as much as like, I don't need a Dallas team. I need the person with the best experience in this line of, in this public sector work or whatever it is, and how we can best support them.
And that's what you're finding out in that first meeting, which is really important to giving yourself the best chance to be the right partner for them.
Yeah.
Right. Because if we just ask questions, okay, you need this type of thing. Okay, we have this person, let's plug them in. Sometimes it's not a fit because we didn't ask those questions.
Yeah.
So you've got this great process around web leads, which is really cool. But when you're looking at, you mentioned you have a business development associate.
Yeah.
And they're spending time mainly with cold email. Are they doing any cold calling?
All cold email.
All cold email.
Maybe we'll have to dabble into the cold calls. I'll have to pick your brain on that.
I think
are people still doing that?
Yeah. I think it is you mentioned outbound is a portion of something that needs to be done. It's like part of a balanced diet is we've got to do that.
I love that.
But the cold calling aspect can be more challenging, but that's also a great avenue, another avenue to generate conversations. But then they're working on the cold emailing, building lists, doing those things. What else is this person doing when you look at, building a BD team, right? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's support from prospect research before meetings. Like every meeting I have on my calendar has been researched, as much as we can to find some type of connection point, right? So I'll look at those notes before I hop on that call and be like, oh, cool, man, we both went to OU or know this person. So it kind of gives you a little bit of that information before, which has been really helpful. Pipeline management. So web leads that don't book a meeting after the messages they get. Okay, let's research them. How do we want to re-engage with them and stay plugged in with them? That takes time and just once again more organization of staying engaged with people. To me, I'm like, they came into our website for a reason. For whatever reason, they haven't booked a meeting. So let's re-engage with them again and kind of check back in with them. There's stuff on lost proposals that we've lost within the last year of how are we going back after that or just kind of restarting the conversation, right? I did the same thing with campus. I called it my Campus Reconnect campaign. So now it's lost deals, close lost, no deal. How are we going back after these, just reintroducing ourselves? It's not you're just being hey, just wanted to check in, see how things were going. I remember with interns, some of them would be like, yeah, I didn't really love that internship, but I loved, meeting y'all in the process. So I'd love to re-interview with you as a staff. I'm like, you just don't know. And so there's support in that. Like I said, the outbound piece of just just staying top of mind with all of that. With certain technologies we use, Zoom Info, but we can kind of see who's going to our website and not the person, but different companies. And okay, if they're not coming in through the web lead, but we see them kind of visiting certain pages, let's just reach out to them. You're not going to be creepy about it, but I'm they're visiting for some reason. They didn't book a meeting, but so it's staying on top of all of those things. We use different intent topics through that platform as well. Supporting pre and post event work. I don't host a ton of events, but the events I like to be a part of are I want to host this event and I want to be in charge of the invitee list, and maybe I'll get another host or two, and let's just make this a really good use of everyone's time. I don't ask for a lot of sponsorships to big things. I'm like, I just want to have an intentional event, make the invitee list, and kind of build those relationships that way, get people connected within my network that might not be connected. And so our BD associate, that's, when I was like, okay, first hire, like, is it someone down in the Houston market, like out and about in the network? Could be. Or is it, let's like really set this, let's help build what this BD culture looks like within our firm and how we can support not just me trying to originate new leads, but now being able to do this outbound is showing like we did this huge outbound for our Permian Basin markets. And so it's like tapping into like, and then telling the partners like, hey, this is all the companies we targeted that we weren't connected to, but this is how we're supporting you. So I think it kind of goes back to that, what I first did my first year in BD, like more internal support from a BD perspective. Yep. And now I don't maybe do that I still do that, right? I always want my partners to feel like I'm supporting them in whatever way. But now it's like, how can we through outbound let them know we're thinking of them and trying to drive business for them and get them plugged into, I think it's important for that. So a lot of different support areas. I'm probably missing some things too. It's been such a value add for me, and I think for the firm as well.
Yeah, no, I think what you're describing is outside of the outbound piece, it's really the enablement. Like like we need somebody to track pipeline. We need to manage our lost proposals. I think that one piece is what a lot of firms are missing. Yeah. Is we do such a we work so hard to generate new conversations with prospective clients, and then we will have a meeting, they'll go dark, or we'll go all the way to proposal, we won't hear back, or they'll tell us no, and then we don't follow up. Yeah. And we, especially for a firm of Whitley Penn's size, there's so many of those out there. It's like that's almost that's a really big job to manage that process, and how are we going to re-engage them and continue to nurture them and just check in like, hey, how have things gone the last year? Yeah.
And it's, once again, low-hanging fruit.
It's like easy.
There's things like
simple but not easy.
My favorite book, Essentialism. I recommend it to everyone. It's like work smarter, not harder. Like these things are just easy. They're not easy, simple, but they're things. We're already doing them, to your point. And so like the lost proposals, it's like now we set criteria. They go into a new pipeline if they close loss or no deal more than 365 days. And then it's like we send a link to all the books of business and partners. So it's like, hey, go click on this link, go to view your close loss or no deal deals. And you can either indicate you will pursue or you want BD to pursue. Because if you have the relationship, then you should go after it. I don't want to ever like step on toes. But if you like just got connected to them kind of willy-nilly, don't really know them, and you're so busy because remember, they're still doing the client service work. They have a day job. And the best clients are the ones you already have. So you got to keep them happy. So we give them like the option, okay, now I know they want BD to pursue this. So I'll kind of go in there, look at past notes, okay, move to close loss. Maybe there's a reason, maybe there's not, but kind of like look back at the history and be like, okay, how can I reintroduce our firm, myself? And then if it gets back to call it they're interested in reengaging, then I will loop back the original book of business if it makes sense, and we'll pursue from there. Yep. And so I think all that was another big initiative we just started. But I'm like, these are just things we need to habits we need to build over, and just they'll get easier and easier.
It will. And it's the highest ROI things that you could be doing, because outbound, while part of a healthy diet, that's hard. Yeah. Let's call someone we've already met that was interested in engaging us and is just not a client yet. Yeah.
And we don't know who they know, right? It's why I treat every web lead the same I would as any referral lead. We don't know who they are. We want to give them the best experience of us. It's our reputation too. I think we forget it's my reputation as well. Like when you talk about brand and all that. And so you want to give them that overall best experience so they remember that, whether they work with you or connect you with someone else or don't even work with you.
Yeah. And I think when you're looking at these initiatives that you're creating to create these experiences, I think that's really, again, these are simple things that we know are important, but they're not easy to do and do consistently or do well. And so it's really cool that you've been experimenting with this and have started to see success with some of these initiatives and projects that you're working on. I do want to take a moment and you mentioned something, intent data.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of interest in how to utilize intent data. And so for those that don't know, intent data is through providers like ZoomInfo that are seeing what companies are searching for to give a little bit of a warm or heads up for these companies to then reach out to, hey, there's a company here that was searching for audit services in Dallas or whatever. And so are y'all seeing that? Is it just interesting, or is it actually valuable information?
I will be transparent. That's like something that's like our next thing.
Okay,
it's
cool.
something I got however many intent topics I can set. You kind of don't like change them all the time because you want to see how they're working. So I've set these intent topics. But to your point, people are already actively searching for those things. So now it's just like you kind of build your outreach list around like, okay, if they're searching for it, let's just like get in their inbox. Yeah. So TBD on that. Okay, I'm excited for it because I think it's a little bit more intentional. And if they're already actively pursuing it, why not try to build the relationship around that, knowing that piece? Sure, there could be more to the puzzle there. But I think when I was looking at different, services to use, that's something that really stood out to me of like, okay, that seems like a good use of outbound time spent.
Absolutely.
So I like it.
That's cool. Okay. So we'll hear more about that maybe in another episode. But when we look at, so you got a BD associate, we've got a great web, automated, high touch, great discovery kind of playbook system. And then you've also got your external responsibilities in building your network. And you referenced LinkedIn, right? So has that been a valuable tool for you?
Oh gosh, I love LinkedIn. Okay. I think I've been using it, for years and years. And it's evolved over time, right? I remember I used to produce video content, which took so long. And even written content takes so long. But I think if you're consistent with it, I was talking to one of my COIs the other day, at breakfast, and we were kind of talking about what do you do, and he does a lot of outbound himself, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how do you do, like, you're doing both, like out and about, one-on-one meetings, building your network, and just getting with folks, and then outbound. I'm like, I just don't have a lot of time for outbound. That's why I love having my BD support role and associate. And he's like, well, you do spend time doing it. You just do it all on LinkedIn. Like he was like, I don't know anything LinkedIn. And I was like, you're so right. Like, and you will make time to do the things that are important to you. And that's just always been a tool I've enjoyed using. I think you can build amazing connections through it. I think once again, it's not just you, right? You have to comment and support on other people's too, and be a good user in that sense to, I think, really see the benefit from it. But nowadays, I used to travel a ton with campus, and that was one of the favorite things I loved about the role. And then I got married and had kids. I was like, I don't want to travel anymore. But now I have people in every market I could call on, right? And I've built these networks in mainly focus on networks and markets that like Whitley Penn has offices in. But if anything were to come up, and I can now get referrals from all sorts, because I want everyone in all my offices to know that I'm thinking of them. It's not just a Dallas thing. So I kind of have used LinkedIn in that tool. I'll do outbound through that as well, like using Sales Navigator, for instance, of doing certain specific outreach that I've just done recently. I'll kind of build lists through LinkedIn, which I think there's sometimes things easier to do on LinkedIn than like a ZoomInfo or whatever data platform of trying to find the actual people I want to connect with. So it's been something I do make room in my day every day to be on LinkedIn.
Well, because I think it's really important an easy way to stay top of mind with folks, but it's also a way to build trust with folks. And I think if you use the LinkedIn Sales Nav feature to build better lists around common like pursuits, like the healthcare conference that you had mentioned earlier, okay, who in my network is in the healthcare industry that would be a good fit for me to invite to the conference. So this allows us to be more organized and focused around particular issues.
And you see like your connections. My favorite feature on there is you can see new CFOs that have just like within the last 30, 60, 90 days. So I'm like, okay, if they're new, like let's introduce ourselves. And especially if we're not already connected with them. Or you kind of see who you're connected to or like by way. And so I'm like, okay, maybe I don't know them directly, but I know someone really well that's connected to, I'm going to ask him or her and kind of go about it that way, which I think is important. Once again, more intentional about the introduction instead of me just blindly reaching out. I'm like, oh, Neil, do you mind? Like, I see you're connected to Joe. Do you mind making that intro? And you're like, yeah, no problem. Yep. But once again, if you don't ask, people are not mind readers. So if you don't ask, they don't know how to support and help you.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I think that is a key feature in LinkedIn and being able to see who you want to know and then who's connected and then what ask can you make and then making the ask. I think
now, probably years ago, I would just like accept everyone and everything. And now I'm a little bit more like the requests, I'll carve out a little time to like go through those because anyone I accept, I'm going to send a personal message to or anyone probably viewing my profile. But now I'll look at it sometimes and be like, does it make sense for us to connect or like, how in the world did this person find me? Because I've had where friends and COIs and connections have been like, oh, hey, I see you're connected to them. Do you mind making an intro? And sometimes like, I honestly don't really know this person. Like, and I'll be honest, and they're like, okay, no problem. Like everyone's been there, done that in their LinkedIn journeys. But now, because I want someone to be able to come to me and be like, yeah, I know them. Like happy to make that intro for you.
Yeah, I think being intentional around your connections on LinkedIn as you continue to develop that network is a really good idea. So you can make sure that you're connected with the right types of folks in your network and being intentional about it. So I love that. So where are you headed? Like when you think about the next 6 to 12 months, you talked about like this intent feature, which you want to explore a little bit more around. But what does the next 6 to 12 months look like for you when you're pursuing external new opportunities, new logo growth, building your network, and internal stuff that you're working on in projects?
Yeah, I think it's always going to be the same things I'm doing currently, but how do we readjust, remake them better, work more efficiently, make sure we're seeing the ROI, like they're worth our time as well. So from whether that's an event perspective, how do we continue to make the Webley process better, the close loss process, and then our outbound will be a big goal to like hunker down more and get more like, okay, what do we really want this outbound processes to look like? And are we seeing the real benefit from it? And how do we get better at it? Because I want our like BD associate to also feel like very empowered in what she's doing. And I try to give her the autonomy and like, how do we build this process out? But that's a lot too. So spending time in that area, I think too, I mean, we're a great size firm. So the fact that there's just a small but mighty team could be crazy. So how do we continue to grow this team? Whether it's by, supporting our other markets and having people boots on the ground doing the same thing we're kind of doing up here, I think is really important. And then, just being really intentional about events. The intent topics I think are great. I think pouring into certain industries, like how do we build better relationships with a private equity type industry? So a group that touches every industry, but like how do we kind of, we've brought this up a lot of like getting to build deeper relationships within that. So kind of being a little bit more, right now it's like I can support you in any service and any market and all these things. And that's great, right? That's a pro, right? I can truly support you whenever, but it can be a con too, because you're kind of like scattered all over the place. So getting a little bit more intentional about, okay, where do we want to see certain growth? Where do we want to build, where we may be lacking in certain areas of relationships, or man, we do really good in these ones, so let's keep pouring into those. Maybe it's certain service lines we want to focus more on, but kind of setting the tone of what does growth look like for the firm within the next 5 or so years, and how can we start doing those things now from a relationship standpoint?
Yeah, and I know because there's, that's a loaded question is what are you working on, but I think your main your main point was like, how do we get more focused around what's working and really refine that, but then also find new areas where we know we need to be spending our time. But again, with a small but mighty team, I know that we didn't really get into this, but we have y'all have a great marketing team at Willie Penn and a great marketing leader. And so what is marketing doing to help support business development, and what's business development doing to help support the ROI that marketing's doing?
And I think you have to stay very aligned on that. Like Chris and I meet every month at least. There has to be a BD marketing alignment. I think they're separate groups. They have separate goals, separate skill sets. And I always joke, like the web lead, like I worked with our digital team to like create it exactly how we wanted it. And then I'm always like, we all play a role in this and you want them to feel engaged in it as well, right? And so like, okay, the way we set it up, the way SEO works, the way these web leads come in, okay, let's set up all the forms correctly. Okay, now BD is going to step in and take over this part. Okay, now BD makes the intro to the partners. Like everyone plays a role in the process. And so we all have to work together towards what we're doing, but then knowing the responsibilities and making sure everyone's doing their part in it.
Yeah. And again, at larger organizations like with marketing and business development, it's critical that is aligned, because you can't have a good web lead process unless you have what marketing's website and what marketing's in charge of and what their job is with SEO to try to generate new opportunities and traffic to the website. And then now what's BD's role? And then now BD's the quarterback of the deal. And then how are we engaging the delivery team? And so
it's so important.
It's multiple phases and steps and people. And so it's tough that kind of brings us back to focus. What's the easiest or the simplest things that we know we need to be doing that will generate the highest return on our time and investment? And then how are we structuring that? So that's great. So, when we think about, we've shared a lot of great information around how you've approached with your background in recruiting to how that's affected how you focus on business development and your role and adding value. And then all these projects that you're working on, which were great, and to really think through how you're structuring that with tactical examples. But leave us with, knowing our audience are business development folks, BD pros, partners, right? People at firms, marketing leaders, growth leaders. Leave us with a final thought around what we talked about, but what's been the biggest, thought, philosophy, like guiding star for you around like how you think about business development?
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of touched on this, and I've spoken about it before in presentations I give, but there's a million ways to do BD, right? You have to do it in a way that works for you and also for your firm as well. So it's not all about what I think is the best way to do it. I need to know from leadership and our CEO and what do they value as well. So I think you have to kind of understand where they see the value in it too, and kind of play in that capacity as well. But I think for BD, it's being curious. It's being a true supporter. It's really wanting to make a difference for those people that you're meeting with and allowing them to see that side of you. And I always joke, in this role, I think for any BD professional, and when someone always says like, pick a word or whatever, I'm like, you have to have this blend of confidence and humility, right? You have to be confident in what you're doing, what you're selling, what you represent. But confidence without humility can come off as arrogant. But you have to have that humility side as well, to accept feedback, to be able to open to changing things, to be able to collaborate on things. It's not just all you. I'm not going to win a deal by myself. I need everyone else. And humility, though, without confidence can be, a little passive. And so I think you need this perfect kind of blend of both and incorporating those. So I would encourage every BD person to kind of focus on that. What strengths and skills do you bring to the table, and what's going to make you stand out to the partners at your firm, to the prospects that you meet with, and just kind of pour into that. I mean, I'm constantly like, tell my partners, it's like, look, I'm here to support you. How can I make your life easier? Like, let's go at this together. Let's support one another, because at the end of the day, we want what's best for the firm. And prospects can see that too when you're coming together.
Yeah, and I think you make a really good point, is we have to be confident in our solution and our abilities, which comes with reps and over time. But then we have to have that humility because we know we're a part of a bigger team, and it's not necessarily, we can't drive the change that we need to drive because we need the leaders on board with what they care about, and it's finding that alignment. So I think that's a great final thought. So Danielle, thank you for joining me today. And thank you all for listening.